It wasn't that long ago that I reviewed this 4-piece Samsung flagship soundbar system, the 2025 Q990F. I remember it well. I was sitting like right there. Unless you've been living in a yurt with no Starlink, you probably know I tend not to review the standard thing all by itself, like I did with the Q990F. I'm a little extra. To correct my previous video, I will be adding 3 pieces, all official, legal in all 50 states. The newcomers, 2 2024 music frames, no hardware refreshes quite yet, and a 2025 frame TV. All unified through Samsung's 2025 version of Q-Symphony. That's right, I have a prescription, and the only fever are the music frames. It used to be that adding a music frame to Q-Symphony with a soundbar required a 2024 model year or higher soundbar and 2024 or higher TV. Old news. You can do the whole zero customer demand, one frame thing with pretty much any Samsung TV and Samsung soundbar that supports Q-Symphony. All this trickles down to the people eventually. After my deep, intense, intrepid, expert, brave, selfless yet humble research, I discovered adding a second frame is all about the TV, not the soundbar. So if you have a 2025 plus Q-Symphony enabled Samsung TV, 2 frames and a Q-Symphony enabled bar, like say the 2023 Q990C, you're in the game. The Q990F or another 2025 soundbar is not required. Samsung has this brilliant scheme. They don't really tell you how any of this works, which adds to the mystery. You have to buy it and look forward to the surprise. Anyway, what we got here is part of a burgeoning trend to offer plug-and-play systems with a wide separation in front and the back. Certainly, the Sony Theater Quad is a big player, but we also have the Roku Streambar Pro with up to 4 satellites as an expansion option that I have almost reviewed at least like 10 times. The AWOL Thunderbeat with a firmware update, I have it in-house. Luva, WeBoost, Hisense Saturn. B&O have some budget options if you're looking to get your toes wet. Anyway, despite the competition, the Quad seems to be the great hope in this space, mixing a well-known brand, transformative sound at a price safely under that of one of your organs. Can Samsung, a well-known entity with audio plaudits generally more affordable, make the Sony Quad nervous by bringing the music frames into the mix? I'll be giving you the hard, unfiltered, my truth. The music frame is a complicated product. From its speaker technology, the directions the sounds are supposed to go, the big old picture blocking everything, to how it connects to other frames, to how it connects to the TV, to how it can play along with other Samsung audio products more generally. I don't want to get into a long discussion here, as I did review these capabilities in previous videos. The short version is they sound okay, middling. Hi-fi speakers, they are not. They have numerous wireless connectivity options, AirPlay, Chromecast, Alexa, Google Assistant, Bluetooth. They're Atmos enabled and have SpaceFit Sound Pro for room correction purposes. They're well integrated into the Samsung ecosystem. I'll give them that. A music frame can act as a TV speaker over Bluetooth or over Wi-Fi like you can with a soundbar. With Q-Symphony, you can add up to 2 and they can go in any of these places. If you have 2 up front, you can play them as stereo or ambient. If you put them in back, they act as rear speakers in cases where you just want some rear sound to adorn your TV sound, or your sound bar does not come with rear speakers. Their primary function is to be standalone speakers that can group or multi-room with other Samsung audio products without a Q-Symphony TV. I'll be testing the frames in front and the F surrounds in back, and the reverse with the surrounds up front and the frames in back. My primary focus will be the arrangement with the music frames in front. Let's talk setup. It's not bad. Just add the TV, soundbar, and music frames to SmartThings. It's a guided process. In TV settings, using the TV remote, go to Q-Symphony Setup. You should see your soundbar and 2 music frames as options in the wireless category. Select all 3. Then you will want to position the 2 frames where you want them amongst these 5 options. So left, right, back center, and back left. Note, if you adjust a music frame's volume in the app or using one of its physical volume buttons, all the Q-Symphony components get louder. However, in Q-Symphony settings, you do have the option to adjust the music frame's volume independently to a limited degree, right here, which is not a super slick process if you're changing these levels with some frequency. But I'd much rather have it there than nowhere, like independent TV volume control, which is vexatiously absent. This will be a reoccurring theme in this review. And before leaning back and kicking your feet up, make sure you select Q-Symphony as the audio output option, or all the purchases and setup will have been merely for funsies. Random stuff you gotta know. I'm happy to report there has been a dramatic improvement in Samsung TV's capacity to distribute wireless data to speakers. I'm not saying there weren't many dropouts, temporary quality reductions here and there from the various speakers. If there were, and I'm sure there were, they were not noticeable and not whole system hiccups where everything dropped. Last year with the single frame, I was getting single frame and full system cutouts up to multiple times a minute. So stability, reliability has been categorically changed for the better, even with more components. Yes, I've also heard people complain that Q-Symphony causes an echo. I didn't hear that. The sound comes across as synced to me, but I've never had an issue on this front, and sync issues generally cause me severe distress, mostly because my wife never, ever, forever hears it. What is she even using her brain for? Keep in mind, if you mute the mic on the bar or the music frame, microphone-enabled correcting features like SpaceFit Sound Pro and Active Voice Amplifier Pro are disabled, though what those features even mean or if they're helpful in this broader setup is difficult to discern. Buggy stuff. As I reviewed various configurations moving in and out of Q-Symphony, there were many instances of settings options, I don't know, taking a long lunch. On the app, just in the Q990F environment, the ability to adjust channels mysteriously disappeared multiple times. The audio sync button kind of shows up when it feels motivated. Sometimes you get adaptive sound and sometimes you get adaptive sound plus. It doesn't seem to matter if you're in Q-Symphony or not. One time, pretty much all the functionality went on strike. On the TV, sometimes just one music frame would show up as adjustable, other times both frames. And I would often be kicked out of Q-Symphony when power cycling the TV. If your system is really starting to act up, I found just unplugging everything and then plugging it back in whipped everything back into shape. If you have no patience for this kind of nonsense, I'd start crisp walking backwards. Okay, so what about the sound? I think there's a high probability when you first fire up the system, you're gonna have some thoughts. Maybe not the best thoughts, but I'm gonna back up. This contraption I'm reviewing is uniquely complicated. The 2025 TV I chose, while much newer than your antique show of a TV, is not the biggest TV. It's pretty big for like a 1989 TV, but not the biggest TV in 2025, standing diagonally at 43 inches. After you buy all the sound bars, you can complain about my TV. I don't need another big TV. I can use it as my third monitor on my second editing setup. Anyway, this particular TV will probably not be inducted into the Audio Hall of Fame anytime soon. The sound a bit itchy, pretty stingy in the middle, and keeps getting stingier as you go south. Anyway, it's not necessarily a player I wanted to put in the game after hearing its contribution, but Samsung doesn't let you mute the TV nor adjust the TV sound independently, which at best is really silly, and at worst, really, really, really silly. This is a Q-Symphony frequency sweep with the TV. The system volume is set to 25. Yep, pure distortion when playing the low notes. Here is the Q990F sweep, unburdened by the TV. Far cleaner. Yep, hearing the sweep is far more informative than seeing it, at least in this case, and does expose the limited utility of these kind of curves. I hate to say it, but without the ability to mute TV independently, a bad TV choice can make the whole setup a huge downer, as the TV will degrade the overall sound quality with its high distortion, and it will do it with regularity, particularly if you're partaking in the boomy stuff. If you have a Samsung TV and have been using Q-Symphony and haven't been dogged by distortion, you're going to be fine, but consider this a warning to those with smaller TVs or those thinking they're going to skimp on the TV and splurge on the music frames. Okay, so let's continue the review, assuming you have a properly tiered and sized TV. Yes, so as hinted a few paragraphs up, you probably will not immediately fall head over heels with the sound. It's possible that the sound will come off a bit too hot, in that it's easier for your TV and the frames to play the high notes. This effect is heavily impacted by content and source. At a given frame level setting, it can be totally overwhelming with higher quality audio, like with a Blu-ray, but then maybe you switch over to the NBA playoffs, streaming through YouTube TV, using a TV Smart app, and with the exact same music frame setting, you can barely hear them. So if you're listening to a wide variety of content with various levels of quality, like moving between cable, streaming, Blu-ray gaming, the nice way to put it is that the experience may be high maintenance.
Not talking about this.
Gonna make a little side gripe. I did start to get a little, maybe not so little bit frustrated with the F sub. With my new TV arrangement, I found it difficult to place the sub in a location that maximizes its potency where I sit. There really is a localization severity, and it will limit where you can place it while getting the best performance it can offer. I did talk about this in my F reviews. So all of this kind of made me say, uh-oh, is my Samsung setup I've been writing steamy novels about uglier than her profile pic? Well, instead of throwing all of it away because I'm not a quitter, I plodded forward and spent significant time finding the best sub position, which ended up being well below and behind the TV. You're going to want to experiment in the X, Y, and Z dimension. A stand may help. Next, I went to 3 different devices, the Q990F and the left and right music frame, and toned down the treble a bit. Other Q990F channel adjustments may be appropriate based on how you're hearing the mix, like reducing the levels of the surround channels on the bar, which I found makes the bar and frame coordinate much better. Depending on how bass is performing, you'll want to go to the various bass EQs, woofer, and bass boost settings. And just because you got it more or less balanced for whatever you're listening to right now, that doesn't mean tweaks won't need to be made when you move on to the next thing, depending on your tolerances. Okay, so what do the music frames and TV even do sound-wise? Well, none of it's as deeply transformative as you might be thinking, because the TV and music frames play ambiance, background stuff, atmosphere, surround sound bits. So you do get more separation up front, but it's not traditional bread and butter left-right separation. So think muffled voices, traffic sounds, birds, wind, faint orchestration, audio that's not in focus. Sadly, the left and right channels on this setup, the channels that are most critical in stretching the space, are still merely this far apart. Though, this doesn't mean that the frames don't offer value in this vein. Anything coming in or leaving the TV bounds, moving towards the periphery, was emphasized, livening the sound, doing some of that space expanding stuff you get from the quad. The atmospherics that I reported as not being particularly strong on the Q990F was certainly boosted by the frames and TV, making the sound, well, not more three-dimensional, but four-dimensional, tactile. You'll hear more details that get you closer to touching the grass, feeling the breeze, getting chills from the mist, getting creaks placed wide enough that it's convincing the floor under you is about to collapse. Do the music frames give the setup a welcomed boost on the 3D audio front? Well, in a limited way, but not enough to hype them as such. I never felt like they improved accuracy nor made the vertical effects undeniably stronger. I'd say really obvious examples of planes and monkeys falling from the sky are intensified, but a firm bubble remains a skill that the Q900 series should continue to work on. Two movies that stuck out to me as big beneficiaries of the expanded setup was Oppenheimer and The Gorge on Apple TV+. With Oppenheimer, you get these claustrophobic pressure cooker scenes where the frames helped you to hear the air move, catch more subtle movements and shifts off screen, making it sound less dead and more as if you're a participant. Alternatively, there are many big open space scenes that are just simply broadened if you hear the detail out there from the music frame directly, as opposed to side-firing channels on the bar. The horse riding, construction, trains, stomping, the explosion when it finally got there, all more surroundy. The Gorge, a movie about a big open space, similar story. The music frames help to communicate scale and highlight the many motion effects you get from the quirky folks down below, ziplining, gunshots, drones coming in at funny angles. Even something as simple as moving a shelf in the concrete watchtower, the movement is heightened and extended further out to your periphery, with subtle echoes of the dragging making themselves more apparent. Every second is impacted in these ways. It's an undampening of soundbar sound, but in a way you would want it to happen, with speakers, not unwanted sound reflections. Music. On the whole, it's a net positive, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get some eyebrow-raising moments. So the music frames in this arrangement, as you may be catching on, do not play foreground sounds. The meat of the instrumentation is filtered out before hitting the frame. So again, definitely not a traditional front-wide separation setup. What you get is the fringe of the sound, echoes of the instrumentation, residue of the foreground. Oftentimes, this works just fine, livening the listening experience, working against the centralizing effect of the bar, which is not what you want when listening to music. I enjoyed some of the call and response elements where a phrase is made central, then repeated or elaborated on in a more peripheral, atmospheric manner.
She make me wobble, wobble.
The frames help to bring that more to life and act as a magnifying glass into some of the details you may have been missing. In instances where the voice volume was already somewhat low relative to the instrumentation, the relatively less important sound the frames are tasked to play can forget their place and exacerbate the low vocals problem and may overemphasize filler sounds, making them too central. So yes, the magnifying glass can be too big. One of the albums that did not play well in this way, going totally random, was The Thrills' So Much for the City, a 2003 album, which often has fairly loud, high-pitched, high-gain banjo picking, which masked the vocals to a problematic degree and sounded somewhat tinny on the frames. I do not love the music frame for music, which sounds like I'm being mean and attacking its telos, which I am. I found them more suited for high-action cinema than the tender job of rendering music. In general, I think you'll find modern mixes, stuff on today's charts, my AI bangers,
You make me come back home and I cuddle.
more at home on this setup. The sound distribution and channel levels sounded more natural. Okay, so what if we were to put the Q990F surrounds up front using the front surround settings and have the music frames act as rears? Well, that can totally happen, but should it? After maybe 5 hours of listening to movies, action scenes, music, sports, well, it's not how I would ultimately leave it, but it's worth the experiment. In the end, you are losing some of the spatial sophistication and in particular rear height presence, and reducing what is meant to be a 3-channel rear speaker into a more generalized sound atmospheric speaker with less definition and differentiation, which is what the music frame already does quite well. The music frames in the back does not fully replace what the surrounds do back there, in particular hide audio, but you can turn them up using the Q-Symphony settings on the TV to be quite noticeable, which may be appealing if you think that the F surrounds are congenitally too soft. If you have 2 music frames, definitely give it a try.
I've been listening.
The ski trip gave me hope. Woke up like I owned the slope, but I ain't never skied. It's Bunny Hill for me. Kids and grandmas cutting fast while my bros hit like no cap, catching air, making shawty's care. Slipped into the zone, yeah, tripped on a cone. Magic carpet shake, it's a banana pill to me. Black sky jumps, flying over chumps. Technique dated, hella frustrated. My crew make sure I blush. My ski coach just say much. Can't escape the facts, running over cash. This bunny ain't nucking. Stuck on ice, want a pizza slice. High price, family's being nice. The diamond stole my scene.
I said I'd never be your man. Now I don't know what I was thinking when I told you that. And I guess I lied, 'cause I changed my mind. Oh, I changed my mind.
Oh, you're gonna be a pirate.
She's getting a lot
Just shut up for 1 second, there's a BMW chasing us.
Hey, can I just take a moment to thank you? There is nothing else I'd rather be doing with my life. I don't care. Whoa!
Buying advice. Should you buy the music frames? Well, if you think that they're gonna turn your system into some sort of Super Sony quad arrangement, sorry to report, no. The impact is, let's say, additive, not transformative, which, as I have elaborated on, has its charms and limitations. Given the amount of criticism I layered on this setup, a reasonable question is, well, let's skip the is it worth buying question and ask, does it make the system better? Well, it's not a yes or no. We have a classic
it depends situation.
While I have a lot of well-founded criticisms of the setup, I am sure I would have had a far more positive tone if I had an $8,000 Samsung TV, not $800. If you want to roll with the music frames, first make sure you like or at least are not bothered by your TV sound in regular Q-Symphony mode, or if starting from scratch, get a higher end 75-inch TV or bigger. Buy a TV that has Pro or 90 somewhere in the model name. Again, it's critical because you have no control over how loud the TV is beyond general volume, which adjusts all the components. You want the music frames, your TV is tagging along loud and proud, whether you like it or not. If you want to add the music frames and then forget about it, it's not for you. I found it requires a lot of fiddling based on content, including a tendency to get kicked out of Q-Symphony, maybe after a TV power cycle, or for no discernible reason whatsoever. This setup is really not yet slickified enough for the general population, but if you're into experimenting, if you are looking for at least stretches of the most impressive sound Samsung Q-Symphony can offer, go get those frames, bro. If you're on the fence, I would wait for good deals on the components. It's also possible the music frames will be updated with new hardware to sound a bit richer. Yes, cheaper and or newer, we like that, but there are some enhancements Samsung should make with what I have here to get the fencers leaning more towards buying. First, the ability to lower TV volume alone and allow for TV sound to be left out entirely. This would address the Achilles heel by providing mechanisms to stop a TV from ruining everything. Expanding on that, provide a channel adjuster for all the Q-Symphony components. Provide an environment that treats Q-Symphony system like a soundbar in SmartThings and offers analogous controls at that higher level. Give us a dedicated space to get the sound right. 2, create an auto-tuning authority that brings all the components together where it can make system-wide adjustments as SpaceFit Sound Pro Plus does with the Q990F components. Yes, the Q990F and even the music frames have SpaceFit Sound Pro auto correction tech, but we need everything sounding good together, not each subsystem thinking it sounds good alone. Make this advanced correction feature at least smart enough to know the TV should not play that frequency at that volume because it's gonna be pure distortion. You know, really unobvious stuff like that. 3, squash the bugs. Fix all those disappearing buttons and unexplainable auto switching between audio modes. If there are reasons why things disappear or are not available in certain modes, be more transparent about it. I think 1 and 3 could be done with some haste. It doesn't involve creating difficult new algorithms, just extending some volume adjustment functionality and fixing bugs. The Q-Symphony tuning, get it done by this time next year so I can heap praise upon you. You made improvements from last year, so I'm hopeful you'll continue along that promising path. Hey, my video's over. It was bound to happen eventually. Subscribe already if you've been loitering around my channel's proverbial parking lot. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.